Welcome to Real Foot Forward, a West Tennessee podcast from Discovery Park of America in Union City, Tennessee. Today's episode is brought to you by ATA.
Thank you, Zach, and welcome everyone to Real Foot Forward, a West Tennessee podcast where we explore the history, the people, and the culture of our home here in beautiful West Tennessee. I'm your host, Scott Williams. Okay, Zach, as we always do before I introduce today's very special guest, will you tell me something you discovered this week at Discovery Park of America?
I sure will. So I stepped into Real Bodies, the exhibition again recently, and discovered the section where you can learn about love and connection. But also, there couples should look into maybe having a day date to Discovery Park, because there's this heart-shaped lock thing that they can put a lock on in honor of their own bond. Pretty cool.
That's very nice. As you know, there are around the world different fences and gates and things where couples can put locks on there. So
Yep.
Anyway, this was an example of that. I thought that was a very interactive way to show that. I also love, as a museum professional, I am always looking out for simple and easy to implement ideas. I love the fans that they put together to show. I think, have I already talked about that on the podcast?
I did. That was my discovery on the last time.
Oh, see, there you go. I mean, see, it resonated with me.
Yeah.
It's so impactful. And every time I go through there, I think that I just took a group of 14 teachers that were here. And I did a little tour with them, and several of them remarked, there are so many little things here that you could miss. Every time we come, we see something new that we didn't know about. So I was thinking you should, what would be interesting? I don't know exactly how to do this, but, if you could take a picture of like one little tiny thing or a poster or something like that and put it on Facebook or whatever and ask people where it is or something like that.
That's a
Anyway,
great idea.
you can mull that little idea over.
Okay.
I'm not going to charge you for that
I'm
one.
going to write that down.
So our guest today is Lorraine Jones. She's the host of It's All Good, a podcast produced by Forever Communications, and she's the founder of a nonprofit cancer agency in Obion County called the Hometown Walk of Hope. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you. How are you this morning?
Zach and I are both fantastic.
Yay!
So take us all the way back to the beginning. Where did you come from?
My goodness, I am a West Virginia girl from the hills of West Virginia. I was born and raised there and went to West Virginia University. I think I was one of the very first people in my family to ever go to college, really. So I had three sisters growing up. We lost our father when we were really young. He died at the age of 35.
Wow.
And I was only 9, and my mom raised three girls in rural West Virginia. And so I think I was the first one in our whole family to ever go to college. Went to WVU and got my degree, and from there.
What did your mother do for a living to support three girls?
Well, my mom, she started out, first of all, I'm from Moundsville, West Virginia.
Okay.
And it's called Moundsville is so because there's a big Indian burial mound in the middle of town. And beside that burial mound is the maximum security penitentiary for the state of West Virginia. And she was the HR director for the penitentiary. She was a secretary at first, but then worked her way up to the director of HR at that facility. So that's what she did. My father was an electrician. He learned that in the Navy. That's how they met. My dad was one of 6 boys, and they lived in the woods in West Virginia. I've seen the home place.
Wow.
And shack, an outhouse, and a well. And these 6 wild Indian boys grew up there. And my mom's brother, my mom was this beauty from New York, Long Island. And
wow.
her brother brought my dad home on a weekend from the Navy and met my mom, and they fell in love. But he learned how to be an electrician in the Navy. So he was the maintenance director at a power plant in West Virginia, somewhere along the Ohio River. And so they raised us in Moundsville. And he passed away from cancer, which probably is one of the things that sparked my interest early on in the endeavors that I ended up being involved in. But raising 4 girls, and we had a really nice home, and he was making good money and doing well. And he came home one day and he had a bump on his neck. Now, my dad was a rough dude. Okay, let me say that. He was a raging alcoholic. He was a chain smoker. He was a rough dude, but he worked every day, but he came home with a bump on his neck, and he went to the doctor, and they told him that they called it back then, they called it wildfire. That doesn't sound good, does it?
Nope.
That's all they called it. They said, you have wildfire. And
that just meant it spread really fast. Is that?
It was a very aggressive lung cancer that just spread like wildfire. So that's what they called it. And they gave him 6 weeks to live.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And he lived 4. So left to her with 4 girls. We were 7, 9, 11, and 14.
Wow.
I was the 9-year-old. So she did fine. It wasn't, we didn't have everything we wanted, but we had everything we needed.
It's great. Now, did she remarry?
She did. She remarried a few times.
Okay. That's good.
And
so she didn't get bored and lonely. And she had a great, were you living in a rural community, or were you living in town?
We were in a rural community. It's very similar. When I moved to Union City and I looked around, I felt at home, minus the mountains, because it's very similar. A lot of outskirts, village towns, and we called them ridges and hollers, but a lot of people out there. But then there was a little downtown area with the courthouse. Our courthouse looked just like the one in Union City, kind of a square. So it's very similar.
So you were kind of the coal miner's daughter.
Sorta.
So when you were going through high school and you were getting ready to end your high school years, what motivated you to be the one in your family that said, you know what, I'm going to go on with my education and do more?
Yeah. And I'm going back up a little bit more with my childhood, if you don't mind.
No, please.
Because I always say, people always say, you ought to write a book, and I would, but it'd be kind of scary. My mom's life, when my dad died, my mom's life just sort of unraveled, because she was dating, and we didn't have a lot of money, and things just sort of unraveled for her. And we really, at a young age, if you needed clothes washed, you had to do it. If you needed dinner, you had to do it. We kind of did a lot for ourselves.
And how old was your oldest sister?
She was 14.
Okay, so she kind of had to lead the way a little bit, I'm guessing.
Yes. She would have to babysit. Of course, she'd lock us out of the house and smoke cigarettes, and but she was sort of in charge. But when I was 12, my mom married a prisoner from the prison on the day he got out of jail. We didn't know anything about it. We came home from school, 3 little girls, the younger ones, coming home from school. We went down to the basement, and there was a man asleep on the couch. And we ran back upstairs, Mom, who is that? And this is her answer, no lie. You can call him Daddy.
Oh.
Yeah. Not a good situation.
No.
On in the house, 4 young girls.
Especially at the age you guys, that's critical for development and things like that.
Not good. Abuse, alcohol, all the stuff, but through all of that, let me just say this. I guess by the time I got to be about 14, I had excellent teachers. I was in a country school, but I had excellent teachers, and I excelled at school. I think that's where I got my attention, from grown-ups. I got some very good attention. I studied hard and I was tops in everything. And I don't want to say that braggy, but that's just the way it was. I wanted the best score on everything. And I had a science teacher that saw that in me and encouraged me. And he and his wife had a farm, and I baled hay for them and different things, and to earn money for a tennis racket and earn money for my track shoes, because I was an athlete too. He taught me how to run hurdles. He was the track coach also at the school, taught me how to run hurdles, and I never lost. I was a really good hurdler back in the day. And then he and his wife taught me how to play tennis, and I played on the high school team, and I played softball. So he helped me with sports and made me feel like I was smart and I could do anything. And the last year in the school that he was at was my ninth grade year. And I was student of the year that year, and just did great. So I think having those influences, those teachers that told you you were smart and you were capable and you can do things, this made me feel like, yeah, maybe I can.
Right. Well, that's so inspirational when you think about teachers today and how important their role is, and how at times it seems like we lose sight of how important the individual teachers as humans are for the little kids as humans, not just the subjects, not just the testing, but just the socioeconomic development and the personality contributions and things like that are so key.
Yes, absolutely. And I have a son who's a teacher and a coach, and I try to tell him all those. I let him know, what a difference he can make. But I think that was kind of a springboard. A critical time for me was 14. My sisters, we had an event happen at our house that blew up, and that convict chased us through the house with a shotgun, and we ran, and it was the most frightening thing of my life. We ran into a van and drove away, and I remember running through the house and thinking, I'm going to get shot in the back. And I mean, it was terrifying, but that ended everything. And from there, I had all this help at school and with teachers and coaches and all that encouragement. So it came at a pivotal time when I really needed them, and they were there for me.
And so we are going to need the rest of the story on that part. Did the convict end up leaving? Did your mom get rid of him at some point?
Yes, that's when all that ended. And
good.
Yes.
Good. So when you were trying to decide what to do next, did you, my friends and I talk about how I graduated from high school in 1981. And so all of us, to a T, 100%, we figured out where we wanted to go to school. We didn't visit college. We didn't go on college visit trips. We didn't, nobody was pushing us into the ACT and we just went to whatever college we were close by. Is that what you did, or did you have the forethought to visit colleges and make a decision, or did you just go where it felt natural?
Yeah, no, I mean, no funds to go visit colleges, nobody to take me. No, I was kind of on my own, and you probably remember then because I graduated in 77. So around the same time, but you couldn't there was no online. You can't apply for college online. You had to fill out a form, send it in, see if you got in, and then this is the dorm I want to be in, send a letter. And, trying to get all that done all by yourself as a 17 or 18-year-old girl. But I always dreamed of going to West Virginia University, and it was, the big university in West Virginia at the time. And I guess a lot of my friends were going there. So I got grants and loans and National Direct Student Loans, Pell Grants, just anything I could think of to get some help to go, because I didn't have any money. There was no money for college.
Yeah, I do you remember what a semester costs then?
I don't know.
Mine was like $400 and something for a semester. Yes. Yes.
A fortune.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, I would have to scrimp and save and, do everything I could to be able to pay that. But then you had to buy books, and I worked full time and went to school full time. But I remember just to register, like endeavor. You would have to take these little computer cards and stand in line in front of a table.
Oh my goodness, yes,
It took
yes.
forever to get registered for college, and even then, half the time I would end up in the wrong classes. Um, so what did you decide to major in?
Well, when I was younger, I've always loved science. I've always liked medicine. I kept saying I was going to be a doctor. I just was very interested in that. I still, though, you remember those shows that they would show surgeries?
Hmm.
Show them anymore. I would watch those surgery. I mean, I really think I could do open heart surgery right now. I've watched that so many times. I love a good surgery. But I always said I was going to be a doctor, but I love medicine. I love sports. So in my mind, I was either going to be a physical therapist or a special education teacher. I just have always wanted to do those caring jobs. I did some volunteer work at a school for the disabled, and I thought I want to teach special ed or I want to be a physical therapist. So those were my go-tos. I started out in pre-physical therapy and went to all the classes, all the, physics, biology, chemistry, all of that stuff. Got through 2 years of that, applied for the medical school for the division of physical therapy. They took 13 people and I was the alternate.
Hmm.
So I didn't get in. And I didn't have money. They said, come back next year. Well, we always take the alternate back. But I didn't have any more time. I needed to get out of school. I didn't have any money. I got a little bit of Social Security from when my dad died, a couple $100s a month. But talking about coal miners, I watched coal miners' kids at night. Like there were some coal miners that would work at night, and they would drop their kids off at my house. I'd go to school during the day, and I'd watch a couple kids at night. Feed them dinner and put them to bed and do that. So I had jobs like that. I was a parking lot attendant, did all kind of crazy things for $1, but I really needed to get out of school. So I switched over to special education. I got my degree in elementary ed and special education, but always had a love, again, for sports and science. And as I was graduating, I heard about this brand new degree that was called exercise physiology, which is the perfect marriage of medicine and sports. And so I started going to night school. I was working at a daycare center, and I started going to night school at WVU for exercise physiology in the Department of Education. So anyway, I started that, finished it up at the University of Akron, and ended up with a degree a master's degree in education with an emphasis in exercise physiology. So,
Oh, excellent.
kind
Excellent.
of a mixture of stuff.
Yeah. And so once you started working with that degree, what sort of jobs were you doing?
Yeah, my first one. In fact, I graduated on Saturday night and my job started Sunday. They called me athletic director, but it was a brand new athletic club in downtown Akron, Ohio, and very upscale. One of the Holiday Inns there had a social group, one of those restaurants and stuff where you have to have a tidy lunch and all that kind of stuff. Well, they wanted to develop a fitness center for the downtown stockbrokers and the mucky mucks downtown. So it was hoity-toity. I mean, it had oak lockers. There was locker room attendants that would wash your clothes and put them back in your locker.
Wow.
We had a
Nice.
restaurant with a chef. And I could teach aerobics at lunch and call the chef and tell him what I wanted for lunch. It was just amazing.
Nice.
It was a good first job. But from there, I was the community health coordinator at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center in Fayetteville, North Carolina for several years. And that was a great job. So my degree kind of morphed into wellness, disease prevention, and that. So hospitals is where my niche really fell into place, where I could do that, disease prevention, exercise, and I taught stress management, weight management, smoking cessation, all the things. So that's kind of where I landed.
Excellent. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
How did you end up from Akron, Ohio to Obion County, Tennessee?
Yeah. My husband at the time worked for Goodyear. He was an
Oh,
engineer. And so we started out in Akron, and then we moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina, then Madisonville, Kentucky. And then in 93, we came to Union City, Tennessee.
so what'd you think?
Well, I'll be honest with you. That back in the day when you would have events at corporate events or whatever for the Goodyear folks, that would kind of be the joke. If you made the boss mad, they're going to send you to Union City. You better be quiet. He's going to send So it was kind of, I was afraid of Union City. I thought, oh no, because it was like the place nobody wanted to go. And I'm just being truthful when I say that.
And for those who are listening who aren't aware, back in the day, there was a Goodyear tire plant that was here that had, of course, this is a town of 10,000, and there were about 2,000 people that worked in that plant, and they were making good money. For a rural community, and in some houses there were 2 and 3 members of the same family that were working at the Goodyear tire plant. So it was definitely a center of the economic and social lives of the people that lived here, is how I would define it. Of course, I was not here. Do you agree with that assessment?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This was a Goodyear community through and through. And I mean, we came, and I was, discombobulated for a while. Anytime you move to a new place, but my grandmother used to tell me to bloom where you're planted, girl, and I tried to, and we fell in love with this area. We absolutely fell in love with it.
Did you have children when you moved here?
My kids were 1 and 5.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so your hands were full.
Yeah. But it was fun, and we dove right into the school system. The Baxter Wheatley, who was the superintendent of schools at the time, lived across the street from us. So Tommy was just starting kindergarten, and I was a nervous mom sending him to kindergarten, and he talked me through that. And I was the homeroom mother every year, and I was the PTO president and did all the things, and they had a wonderful experience here, and wonderful place to raise kids, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I'm glad we got planted here.
Were you working additionally outside the home, or were you able to stay home with your kids?
I worked part-time at the hospital. I started working at the hospital. We moved here in 93, and I started working at the hospital in 94. But they let me work part-time so I could take my kids to school and I could pick them back up. And so they didn't really know I was gone. But and then when they both went to school, I went full-time.
And so this is Baptist Memorial Healthcare. Was it still called that then?
Yeah, yes, it was.
Okay, great. Do you know Mary Nita Bondurant? Yeah, she worked in development here at Discovery Park. She's retired now, but I worked at the Baptist Memorial Healthcare in Memphis, and she worked at the one here, and that's how we got to know each other, and that's how I ended up here at Discovery Park. So Baptist is very near and dear to my heart as well. So also for folks who don't know, in 2011 or 12 when the Goodyear tire plant left town?
I think 12, I think.
Okay. So it was around 2012 when Goodyear tire plant left town. And of course, it was like a bomb went off. When you lose 2,000 well-paying jobs and people leave town because they had to go find work, of course, then the people that provided resources for those people, like the cobbler and the baker and, all those people left town. So, but that is one of the things that triggered in Robert Kirkland a desire to build Discovery Park, because he thought it would be an economic benefit for the community to have a museum like Discovery Park. So there's the Discovery Park connection there, and he was right. It has been a nice economic boon. Now, did your husband also get laid off at that time as well?
Yes, he had to move. He's back in Akron, actually. He's back in Akron, still working for Goodyear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had to move on too.
So, you were working at Baptist. At what point did you see the need for the Walk of Hope?
Well, I started again, like I said, I taught smoking cessation, I taught stress management, I taught a lot of classes, and I always said, when I would go to speak to groups, I would say I have the best job in the hospital because my job is to keep you out of the hospital. And that was really the idea behind wellness. Let's not just take people's money when they're sick. Let's do our best to help them stay healthy. So I had this great job, and I was working in that area of disease prevention. So I had an interest there for preventing cancer and things like that, and also my family. My father died from cancer. My mother died from cancer in 2000. So that need to help folks with that. I just saw the crushing results of a diagnosis like that. So I had a personal interest in cancer patients and a professional one as well. So I started working with a national cancer agency. Let me say that. Working with some of their events, raising money here locally. Started with that. And for a couple years, we raised about $60,000 every year. And the money goes to research. So the money goes away, from the community. And, but what started to happen, people started to see my picture in the paper or whatever and know me. Hey, that lady that manages HealthQuest, she helps cancer patients. She raises money. So when they would have difficulties or their family member would have a difficulty paying a medical bill or getting to and from treatment, they would come and see me and say, hey, we understand you've raised all this money. Can you help us? And, I'm a single mom at that time, taking care of two little boys, pedaling as fast as I can. I could do very little personally. I would help them how I could, or I'd find some friends that could maybe help them. But it became very clear to us that we need to start raising some money that stays right here. So in 2001, me and my very good friend, she has passed now. Her name is Brenda Perry. She was a cancer survivor. We got that national cancer group into my office at HealthQuest, and we said, hey, we want to talk about this. And we said, hey, we're raising $60,000 a year. We want to start doing this, and we want to give you half, and we want to keep half for local needs. And they said, absolutely not. So we said, okay. We said, okay, we just need $10,000. We'll raise the 60,000. We'll just keep 10,000. That's all we need, and we'll give you the rest. And they said, absolutely not. So, Scott, what happens when you tell two women that are pretty strong-minded that they can't do something? What happens?
You come up with, you jump over the hurdle.
We get busy. We hurdle. That's right. So, and I remember, being nervous, but saying to them, you know what? Y'all don't have the market cornered on the walk. There's a walk for diabetes. There's a walk for heart. We will have our own, and we'll keep all the money here if you choose not to partner with us. And they chose not to partner with us and told us they would sue us if we did that. So, yeah, that's a long story. That's another podcast. But anyway, we persevered. And about 3 months later, we had our first hometown Walk of Hope. And we
a lot of times, Zach and I have the privilege of talking to people who are doing cool things that we've never actually done, but putting together and trying to manage a walk is something that we actually can relate to very well because, of course, we have our Discovery Dash.
Yeah.
So talk us through some of the things, if you can take us back. What were some of the challenges of trying to put this new thing together? What were some of your fears and what were the results?
Yeah. Well, finding a name and finding a logo, we did that at a meeting. We did that at a 1-hour meeting. And it was back when you had clip art books. Hey, here's some clip art of a house, of some houses and a little heart. Here's some clip art. That'll be cool. And let's make it red, white, and blue. That's folksy. And let's call it the Walk of Faith, Hope. And let's call it hometown because that sounds great. We came up with that stuff easy. But the tougher part came, like we needed to be a 501c3, which took a couple of years. So somebody told us about two gentlemen in town, both have passed, Bill Hairston and Ike Hudson. They were older gentlemen when I met them, probably almost 80. I'm not exactly sure. But they had been doing since the 70s a little Obion County Cancer Agency where they would get memorials and little gifts on a budget of like $2,500 or $3,000 a year. And they would help people with $300 here, $200 here. That's all these men did. Well, I cold called Mr. Hairston and I said, hey, I hear you have this agency and we want to have a walk and we're going to raise $60,000 a year. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And he goes on the phone. He said, that all sounds good, but we're just two old men. I said, but we're going to help. We're going to help. So we talked him into it, and we kind of joined forces with these two guys that were plugging along for a lot of years. And we went under the umbrella of the United Way. As the United Way gave us $1 a year just to be under their umbrella and our own 501c3. So we kind of started that way. And Scott, that first year we raised $60,000 right there.
Wow, that's great.
Every dime stayed, we gave it right back. And that's the great thing about this organization. You take the money from Obion County and you give it all back. And we gave it back to the community that first year. The next year we raised $80,000. The next year we raised $100,000. The next year was $120,000, and up we go. We now have settled in. We raise around $140,000, $150,000 a year, and that's what we spend. It's pretty incredible. And when Brenda and I decided to do this, honestly, I didn't want to. I was a single mom, 2 kids. I was cleaning houses at night, trying, making ends meet however I could. I don't know anything about a 501c3. I don't know anything about help. We needed help from attorneys, help from accountants. We needed, and I just like, ugh, I don't know that I want to do that. So we prayed about it. We prayed about it. And it was almost one of those prayers like, Lord, surely not, surely you don't want me to do this. But he pokes us and he makes it clear what we need to do. So we forged ahead, but we did put it in God's hands from the very beginning. Brenda and we said, this is God's agency. I'll be his cheerleader. I'll be his helper, but it is his, and he'll make it what it needs to be. And that's exactly what has happened.
And so what is the actual registration fees, the primary way that you raise money, the registration fees for the walk, or where does the money come from?
Well, most of our money, not most, half of our money comes from sponsors. We have fabulous corporate sponsors, churches, businesses, groups that just sponsor us, and give us a check every year to be a sponsor, be on our T-shirt, be on our social media, just to sponsor us. And then we've had teams that have fundraisers and different things. They have bake sales, yard sales, car washes, whatever, and they give the money. We do memorials. If someone passes and in lieu of flowers, they make a memorial to the Walk of Hope. So we have income that way. So it's a lot of different avenues now than just the day of the walk. It's kind of become a year-round endeavor.
And what is the route that people take?
Well, we used to be at the high school, Union City High School, and we had our walk. We had campsites, and our walk would just be around there, around the track. And then we went to the fairgrounds, and we've been at Kiwanis Park. We've been at different places. So it's not a race, a distance race per se, anything like that. It's just a way to walk around. And we have our survivors do a special walk and recognize them. It's just an area where we can be walking throughout the night at the event.
Now we are going to move on and talk about some other things, but if somebody's curious about when the next walk is, where do they find out information?
Well, we have an office now at 902 Perkins Street downtown. We're here Monday through Thursday, 9 to 3. They can come here. They could call. I can give our numbers. I have a worker that works with me, Rita Hussey, on Mondays, and then I'm here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We give our numbers are all over town, so we can give our numbers. We have a Facebook page. It's Hometown Walk of Hope, and people can message us on our Facebook page. So lots of times people just stop in, but they can get with us. Now, one event that we're having in September 20th, and this is Rita's brainchild, because I'm retiring at the end of September.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Excited. So this is a brainchild of Rita's, who is the one that works here on Mondays, and it's called the Block of Hope, and it's going to be a block party downtown. Our downtown is just bubbling right now, and we're going to have a team set up, and we're going to honor our survivors, and she's going to have dunking booths and jumping toys and live bands, and she's got a whole lot in store that everybody will be hearing more about. But that would be a great starting point if someone wanted to get involved to get with us on that and maybe become a part of that.
Well, we'll put links as well and the phone numbers in the show notes for when we publish this. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I want to talk about your podcast and the things you do right across the street at Second Baptist Church.
Okay.
ATA is a nationally ranked advisory, tax, and accounting firm with 16 offices across Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Mississippi. ATA serves clients of all sizes, from family-owned businesses to international corporations, offering comprehensive services. To learn more about ATA, visit ata.net.
I hope you're enjoying the Real Foot Forward podcast from Discovery Park of America. If you are, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our guest today is Lorraine Jones. So, Lorraine, I understand that you as well have a podcast. I listened to some of the episodes and subscribed. How did that come about?
Well, about 4 years ago, Becky Gallagher, do you know her?
I know her very well. She and I were on the board, and Zach, we were all on the board together of the American Advertising Federation West Tennessee chapter.
Okay. I thought she had mentioned that before. Well, Becky, I lost my job at Baptist, in 2019. No money was being put into the wellness center. So I was the director of it, and I knew it meant my job, but I said, if you aren't going to spend any money, we need to shut it down. And they did. So I didn't have a job. So I came here and I started, just as it worked out, we opened this office. And Becky just came in. She was looking for some people, some salespeople at the radio station. And I was working part-time here, and she was relentless in trying to get me to work for her to, sell radio spots and advertising and stuff like that. And I said, I don't want to do that. But we became friends. She's so sweet and just so encouraging. But she would come by my office every couple of weeks. And one day she came in about 4 years ago, and she said, hey, I think you ought to do a podcast. Would you consider doing a podcast for our radio station? And I said, sure. What's a podcast? I did not know what a podcast was. And I know I'm a dinosaur when it comes to stuff like that. I don't know. Rita is in the other room and had to hook us up, on this Zoom call. I don't do that kind of stuff. So I was like, well, I'll do it. And that's sort of my personality. Put me down. What is it, by the way? So she kind of explained to me what it was, and what they wanted it to be was more of an interview show like you have. So the first 10 episodes were, I interviewed people around town. They were about an hour long, and I loved it. But I'm a researcher. I'm not gonna be like you. I'm not as good as you. I'm not going to just have an interview. I would like pre-interview them and I would talk to them and I would meet with them and I would get my questions down and then I'd take them out to lunch after. It just became a whole thing. Too much. It was too much. And I did about 10 of them and I said, look, this is too much for me. I have another job. I've got stuff to do. But I said, I really wanted to do like a more religious, let's tell some good news. Let's tell the best good news that there is to tell. And because I do write women's Bible studies, that's sort of what I'm interested in. And I thought, I have some stuff. I have some canned stuff that I use. Could I do a few podcasts? Now they can't be an hour, but I could call it 15 minutes of good news. And so we played around with what could we call it. And then we just started, how you brainstorm, and we were just brainstorming. And then we came up with It's All Good. And I said, that sounds good. So we named it It's All Good. It's a 15-minute podcast. I usually just do one a month. And it's about all different kind of things. I've talked about, I don't know what ones you listen to, but I've talked about having an empty nest and the Bible says about that and how we should address that. And I've talked about when we went to the Kentucky Derby, I talked about what we can learn from a horse, that we can learn perseverance and how when the race horses, the people that give them the odds, they look at their past and try to determine who they are that day and how they're going to do. And we do that to other humans too. We just look at their past and, they're never going to be good. And the year I went to the Derby, a long shot won. And, I'm for all the long shots out there because I feel like that's what I was in my life. So just kind of podcasts like that just brighten people's day, lead them to the Lord, and just talk about all the good things that are out there.
And we'll put a link to that as well for folks to be able to listen to. But you also, as I read your bio, you write Bible studies, but you also do public speaking. You have talks, Dancing in the Rain, and Does This Bible Make My Faith Look Big? And so do church groups and women's groups bring you in to speak on these topics?
Yeah, I've gone to a lot of area churches. I do girls' nights out, and I do retreats. I've done some overnight women's retreats. I've done some stress management, like for the Prometheum Project. They have a little get together at the lake, and I'll do that. Just different things, and it's all by word of mouth. And so I don't do as much of it as I want to. I'm hoping when I retire that I can build that up a little bit more because it's what I really love. It's what I really love.
That's fantastic. So what advice do you give people who maybe are living here in this small town or in other rural communities across the nation who have a good idea but think, well, I can't do this idea because I'm not in a big city, or I don't have any resources, or I don't have any money? What kind of advice do you give people who may be listening?
Wow. And, just the other day, the Waters asked me to be their weekly spotlight, something they were doing in the paper. And he kind of asked me that question too. And I just said, you know what? The best advice I could ever give anyone is whatever you're doing, let God be your CEO. You know what I mean? Do everything as you're doing it for the Lord. Do it for His glory. Work hard, but do it for His glory and let Him lead your path. You know what I mean? And you can't go wrong. And just to try. I always say, I say this to my kids all the time, and sometimes it gets me in a snit, but I'll say, what's the worst that could happen? Just like the podcast, I'll do it. What's the worst that could happen? No one's going to shoot me. No one's going to hang me by my neck. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just be fearless, be bold. And what's the worst that could happen? Give it a try. And if you fail, it's a lesson and you can try it a different way and move forward. So,
awesome. This has been so interesting. The time flew by. I feel like we're just getting started. But I appreciate you taking your time and talking to us. And I know everybody else has just loved listening to our conversation.
So much for having me. It's been so fun.
And thanks to all you listeners who joined us today at Discovery Park of America. Shout out to our friends over at ATA for sponsoring today's episode. Our mission here is to inspire children and adults to see beyond. To plan an experience here for you and your family, visit discoveryparkofamerica.com.